Here's another doubt that I had about Judaism before converting to Islam.
You asked me to debunk this video, so I did. Hi, I'm Rabbi Morty. I debunk videos need to be debunked. So, what can we see? I will say that everything she's about to say not only is when Judaism more simplifies the religion, but she's basically saying that it was too tough for her and she couldn't hack it, and therefore she went to Islam, where she's still not keeping the law. So she's a Jew, still not keeping the law, going to Islam and following false prophets. How is that better? You could have just been a Jew, and if there's certain things you didn't like about it, so you're not perfect. No one is. That means you have to now go after false prophets and violate other violations in the Torah. Let's see what she had to say.
So, one of the biggest issues that I had with Judaism was how complicated the religion had become. And subhanAllah, the Quran literally warns us against this.
And I'll tell you how much less complicated Judaism than Islam is. First of all, you don't have to wear all that covering your head. What about covering your face, covering your hands? You're choosing not to do that, but you're choosing exactly how much covering you want to do and how much not covering you want to do. That's pretty complicated. What about the estate laws? The Quran is so complicated that it gives away 115% of a person's estate. It's not complicated to be one of four wives to a man. Who knows when their night is? Who knows when what their obligations are? Don't start telling me that it was all about complications.
One example is kashrut.
Keeping kosher.
In the Torah, God had said, "Do not cook a kid in its mother's milk."
3 times, by the way, after 3 different sets of laws teaching us how to keep kosher. But sure, why bother reading the Torah? Let's just not know anything and let's just convert to some other religion. Let's see.
But over time, that became you can't even eat chicken with dairy. You can't mix meat and dairy at all. You need separate pots, separate utensils, separate dishes, separate sinks, and you even need to wait hours between eating both.
Okay, it is true that the rabbis did add on and made fences around keeping kosher because they wanted to make sure you kept kosher. You know what's very complicated? Knowing exactly what the Torah meant by not cooking a kid in its mother's milk. So I'm allowed to have that goat with this milk, or maybe I could have cow milk with bison, but maybe bison is also like bovine, so it's also a cow. I'm not really sure. Is this meat that I see in front of me, is that chicken meat or is that beef? I'm not really sure. Um, it's very simple. Any animal that's slaughtered cannot be eaten with milk. Finished. So simple. And the 2 separate pots and pans makes it even more simple. 1 second. Did I just use this one for milk? Did I cook chicken in this one or did I cook beef in this one? No. 2 separate ones, very, very easy. Milk, meat separate, 2 sets of pots separate, anything that's slaughtered separate, milk is separate, very, very easy. Did you even bother asking somebody or you just like to throw a tantrum and become Muslim?
Same thing with Shabbat. In the Torah, God says to cease work and rest on the seventh day. But over time, that became pages and pages of restrictions. You can't tear toilet paper on Shabbat. You can't cut a cake with writing on it. You can't carry around your keys. You can't shower. You can't do so many everyday things.
Well, you tell me, Mrs. Genius. When the Torah says do not do work on Sabbath, what does it mean? How does that defined? Where do you draw the line? Do you know the punishment for violating the Sabbath is death? Death by heaven? So you want to risk that by thinking that you know all the law? It's true. I'm sure there are restrictions that the rabbi said you can't do that are actually permitted by the Torah law. Of course. That's part of what the rabbis did. They built guard fences around to make sure you don't violate, you don't get too close. First of all, you're allowed to rip toilet paper. You just can't rip it on the seams. You're allowed to shower. You just can't do it with hot water because you're not allowed to boil the water. You are allowed to cut a cake with writing on it. So maybe learn the laws before you decide to just take 4,000 years of heritage and throw it off your shoulders.
And again, same thing with nida or female ritual purity. So God forbade sexual intercourse when a woman is menstruating, but that turned into so much more. No kissing, no hugging, no sleeping in the same bed, no physical contact at all. Even passing your baby to your husband while you're still postpartum bleeding.
Yes, because again, those are very, very important laws. Because you know what? With a husband and wife in everyday life, and they're going together, and hopefully they love each other, hopefully they're attracted to each other, that sleeping in the same bed could lead to things, you know what? In the throes of passion. And you know what's beautiful about that? Is that while there is a separation for about 12 to 14 days, the rest of the month is like coming back together, like you know the person again. And there are many, many laws, more laws in Judaism than there are in Islam, about the obligations a husband has to please his wife. So instead of throwing tantrums, ask. And instead of saying it's too complicated, just admit you couldn't hack it. It was too hard. Any questions, let me know.